sustainability and ESG. Everyone is discussing ESG, but really, what is ESG and how does it affect you as a business owner? And more importantly, do you know where to start? Hello and welcome to Season 8 of the Womenpreneur Asia podcast, and I'm your host, Krista Gun. My mission is to uncover the stories and strategies of Asian women entrepreneurs in Asia to help you and inspire you as you navigate your own business journey. This episode is sponsored by Redbox Studio. One of our signature programs is an entrepreneur game and program where you learn to leverage entrepreneurial thinking. If you are interested in this strategy game and program, check out bigtimergame.com. Today we have a special guest returning to our podcast, Dr. Vimi Ramasamy, founder and CEO of STRAVIK, based in Malaysia. In this episode, Vimi debunks common myths about ESG, explaining how it's not just for multinational companies and isn't prohibitively expensive to implement. She dives into what ESG really means, its impact on marketing and supply chains, and how every business, no matter the size, can embrace these principles. Hello, Vimi. Welcome to Womenpreneur Asia again.
Hi, Krista. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me again. Excited to come back and talk to you in a podcast, right? Instead of chit-chatting.
Yeah. So I remember I had you as a guest many years ago when I first started my podcast. And if I remember correctly, that was in 2020. So a lot has happened since 2020, right?
Yes, definitely. Oh, wow. That's some time back, but it just seems recent, but there's so many things that have happened from 2020.
Okay. So when I first talked to you back then, you were just at that part where you started your business and you were putting together solutions and packages for your own clients, right? But from then onwards, I would say you would have come up with even more exciting things. And of course, you have done different things as well, not just the business side of things, but also on the part where you've done a bit. And I know this because I know you, right? You've done consulting, and then you've also done a lot in the area that we're going to talk about today, which is ESG.
Yes, I'm definitely excited to share. I really like these kind of sessions because it gives me some time to reflect the whole journey that I've gone through, right? And sometimes as an entrepreneur, you need to do that. And maybe we don't get the chance to do it very often and really have the clarity what we have done through the years. And just to recap, when I started in, as I said, I had a business in hand. I wanted to take a career break. But then my ex-CEO called me, and then I ventured in and opened up STRAVIK Business Consulting. So my first project was already handed to me. I started up the whole entire piece with rest of the experts, right? In giving them the strategy, on the whole entire startup, the talent, the location, the resources, how do you map them, and how to actually grow the site for 5 years. And it was more than a year and a half project. It's gone on very well, successful. And in fact, right now, it's already more than about 4 years, right? So it's still running well. They have grown to the numbers that I've quoted, so which is very good to see, very good to hear. And so that's a very good startup that I've done. But from there, I've started to evolve in providing a lot of consulting, as I spoke to you before, right? In terms of one of the things that I started is during that time, COVID hit. So we had a lot of businesses that were stuck, and they were trying to struggle between letting go of the people and what they want to do, how to curb the concern and how to maintain the bottom line, right? So of course, through networks, I went in and I looked at what they were doing. Sometimes we have a different perception. We feel that a lot of people would probably know all the things that they are doing and what we are doing. And when we go in, that's when you realize that people may not know as much as you think or what's out there that is visible for you but not visible to others, purely based on your experience and exposures, right? So I realized there's a lot of leakages happening in the organization. Either leakages in maintaining people, leakages in electricity, leakages in waste. And if you take a look at it, all these leakages is associated with cost, right? And if you want to sustain your organization, one of the things that people think about is the cost, right? So how do we actually prevent these leakages from happening, right? And this is a very important thought process for all the leaders to have. And a lot of them may not know. And I'll just quote you an example. During COVID time, a lot of times when I speak to these leaders of small enterprises, especially that I was consulting, they say, hey, Vimi, I probably need to chop off resources because I cannot pay, right? And the thought is, should I chop off the resources who are highly paid right now? Because that will be less number of people and then I can cut down the cost faster, right? But then they fail to understand. I go ahead and share with them that every resource that they have at that pay is because they have certain talent that was grown over the years. And the cost of growing is way more than what we're actually paying them. And if you feel that you want to chop off the resource, that means you must be very clear you're not going to require that kind of resource in the near future. Or not, it's going to be extra cost for you, right? It's a whole dynamics on looking at that, right? But having that said, they are struggling. But what else can you do, right? And for example, there's one company that I was talking, and obviously they don't want to work from home, right? So I said, please take this opportunity and shut down one of your section. Your utility cost itself will cover the cost that you need to go and pay people. Because a lot of time people feel because utilities is something that they don't deal with, they think it's going to happen every time. So they're not very conscious in paying that.
Okay, so I want to stop you on that note, because I think that is actually one of the things that most business owners will think about, right? I mean, when things are cost cutting, definitely the people have to go. Or somehow some people have to go, not at all, but some people have to go.
Yes.
And they always look at the people that so-called cost them more.
Yep.
Or they have to pay more, right, in order for these people to work for them. So that is the first thing that most business owners or most people who are employing other people would think of. But in your case, we are saying that these people have a reason to be there. They're not there because
exactly.
you want to pay them that money.
Yeah,
right? Their talent is far greater, right? And can be leveraged in other ways versus you cutting them out of the company and then figuring out later, like, oh, I need them back. How? How do I bring them back?
So you see, sometimes you need to understand, if you have very good, talented people, you're already paying high. For example, like just simple maths, you probably need 5 of them to do 20 people's job, right? Those who are not so good. So in my opinion per se, or what we do, we have to be conscious about how we make that kind of decisions, right? And understand the fact. So it's good that you have somebody who knows about how to build and share with you, because a lot of time when they make assessment, they don't assess the cost of the person. They just assess the cost of the static. Right now, what's my pay? Apart from the fact that I've already invested probably 5 years, 10 years down the road for this person in learning and development. So there is a factor that you would include, and then you will see what is the cost and how you calculate the ROI, right? So that's an important thing. So these are some of the things that went missing. Good part is we had the opportunity to give that kind of advice, right? And work through it. And as you know, that the engineering cannot leave me, and so as
you're an engineer at heart. And so if you're listening to this and you're wondering why Vimi is talking about engineering, is because she is an engineer by training, an engineer by education. So for her, engineering is a large part of her life. So engineering thinking and thinking of life from an engineer's perspective would probably be a good way to describe what Vimi is before she became an entrepreneur, right?
Yes, exactly. So when we go in and look at the organization, their machines are not maintained very well. So when I go in with my operations lead, right, Subra, he's also technical. We can hear sounds from the machines, and we have designs machines, and we know that they are not maintained well. If you're not maintaining something well, obviously it's not optimized, right? All these come together, and so these are real problems that people are having in the organization. They do
but they don't see that, right? Just say like right now, you say you hear the sound coming from the machine, which means that it's time for maintenance, right? You kind of like you have to do some maintenance work. But I guess for most business people, until that machinery breaks apart or breaks down or just completely stops working, they would not even think of that as a way of optimizing or way of making things run smoothly. So how do you persuade people to do that?
Again, I think persuasion is one thing that works with all these SMEs is cost, right? Showing them the numbers is very, very important, because when they have a downtime, it's going to impact a certain amount. But not say that they don't do maintenance. Perhaps they are not doing optimized maintenance. A lot of times there are minor things that's going on in the machine that probably most people may not be able to detect. But if you are experts, you go in and you hear the vibration, then for lack of a better term, when we designed many, many years ago, we do a coin test. I will stick a 25 cents, a quarter.
When you are back in the US, when you're in the US, because here people Asian, whatever's a 25 cents coin.
It's a $0.25, right? We will flip it to stand on the machine and have it to operate. So the coin should stay, right? That's how the system should work very smoothly, and it's not jerking, right? So those kind of precision, and sometimes people may not think, hey, it's too much, I don't need, this is not good, this is sufficient, right? But the thing is, it accumulates. And if you have many, many machinery, many staffs, all this accumulates. A simple facility, your air condition, right? Compressors, all those kind of stuff that you use daily, if they are not really maintained in that regime of operational, we see a lot of electricity leakages. And that's why we realized that, hey, these are problems that's really happening in the ground when we see what's going on. And when we come from MNC, we had the privilege of using high-end stuff, right? Monitoring and all those kind of stuff. When we asked these folks, hey, how come you're not having monitoring? Do you have a monitoring system? Oh, yes, we get the bill from TNB, right? So they know how much they have consumed, but they don't have additional details on which equipment have consumed the energy, whether there's a disparity, when was it high, what was their maximum demand, how TNB actually calculates your cost, right? So not many people are fully aware about it. Some of them, they are aware about it, but they feel that the systems out there are way too expensive for them to go ahead and take, right? And it's like a capital cost, right? Easily $500,000, right? And for them, it's like huge amount. But of course, if you go ahead and pour it, again, it is not immediate ROI, but you will see the ROI in a mid to longer term, right? So that's how, when we took a look at all the things happening and with our engineering thought process, we see problem, our immediate reaction is how we fix it. How can we fix it? So we like,
okay. So that's the engineer coming out, right?
Yeah. So it's like, okay, they have a problem. They don't want to do investment in capital. Let's build something for them which is not capital, which becomes an operation cost, OPEX cost, right? So that's how we came up, and we started working on doing software as a service for energy monitoring, right? So that's one of the module. And we realized that all this contributes to the carbon emissions and all those factors, right? That everybody is thinking about the ESG. And so we made sure that people know that by saving, they're actually saving their carbon emission. And then we wanted them to realize that if I introduce a green energy, then you can compensate, right? So that's how we try to integrate both the green energy and the brown energy into a single dashboard. Again, we know the problem, right? If I'm a leader, I'm sitting here or I'm a head, I want to see the organization. I want to see my brown, my green, everything at one point and then make decisions based on that, right? I don't want to go to different area and find that stuff and figure that out. So this is how we started to, okay, there is a problem. How can we design a digital system that is cost effective and provide the relevant information for the leaders, for the people to make the right decision? And we don't need to have a lot of frills, right? We just want to target the major cost impact for electricity. For example, equip all your facility machinery. Typically, any manufacturing, the facility itself will cost you 40 to 60% of the total cost. So if you manage that itself, that's a significant amount of cost savings, and in terms of carbon emission as well, right? So we were dwelling with it. I have to say it took some time because we bootstrapped. We got another friend of ours and my partner, and all of us started building the whole thing and conceptualizing it and doing everything by our own, and then only engaging with coders to go ahead and build that software solution for us, right?
Okay, I want to stop you here because there are two things that I wanted to ask. Okay.
Sure.
Now you mentioned about brown and green energy. For someone who has no idea what that is, could you please define that so that we know that, okay, this is green and this is brown. I know green, but what's brown? Okay, that's one. Okay, that's what I want thing. After that, I want to ask you another one, which means that before you even started creating that software as a service, right? Were there any solutions? I know you mentioned that the solutions that these business owners didn't want to invest in was because it was highly unaffordable for them, okay? Or they felt that they didn't need them. But were there any solutions out there that, were they even aware that there were such things in the first place? Because I think that's also a good way for them to like understand, oh, there's something out there, but I'm not buying it, rather than there's something out there, but I didn't know about it.
Brown energy is something that we actually get from nature, right? Like your coal, your electricity is come from the nature, right? So we are getting the coal, that kind of stuff, where it emits carbon. So they call it brown energy. So your diesel, your petrol, your electricity from the grid, all those kind of stuff that produces even your gen set, right? Your generators and all that, that is categorized under brown energy. There's a significant amount of carbon emission that goes into getting that energy out. Whereas green energy is not only just solar, it can be from wind. I mean, okay, this is also natural. One is from the ground, but it doesn't emit the carbon, right? So it is like from the solar power, from water turbines, right? So that's what they call green energy. So if you take a look at right now, very simplistic put, most of the building management system cater for brown energy, electricity consumption, right? They have that captured. And then a lot of people are actually installing solar. But the solar providers are totally different providers than your brown energy, because brown energy typically comes from TNBs, right? And then you get all that information feed straight away from TNB. So usually a lot of the BMS system captures the brown energy independently. Whereas the solar panel, they have their own inverters, they have their own dashboard, and they have their own view separately. So our intent is we want to pull the information together so we can tell you that, hey, this month you use 70% brown energy and 30% renewable energy, for example. And from this, how much of carbon emissions have you saved? Because if I don't have the green, you will put in brown, right? So I can actually calculate that amount of carbon emissions that you have actually saved using green energy, right? So that's the brown and green. Okay?
Yes. All right. I think that is very much needed, because I'm sure I'm not the only one who's like, what is that? I know green, but I don't know.
No surprise actually, Krista. A lot of people, when we go into the industry itself, they might not know. But this is the common terminology that people use. And as you know me, whenever we want to do anything, we do thorough research. We really study, we really understand what is the terminology, and we make it in very layman, very simple terms so that it's easily understood. right? So now the second question. Many people that we have spoken to on the facilities, especially facilities people, they do know there are systems out there, but they have the conception that most of it are very expensive. Only very few people who really don't have any idea there is a monitoring system. Okay, so that is the thing to tell them. They say, oh yeah, I know there's monitoring system, but it's very expensive. First, they think it's very expensive, right? That's the first thing that they already conclude. Second is, they might not know that now there is a lot of new improvements in that area where we don't need to do a lot of hard wiring, fixing sensors or those kind of stuff. We can do IoT enabled system, which is way, way much more cheaper and also not invasive. So there are options out there, and when you share with them, that's when they think about it, right? And apart from this category of the people, some people who has been in facility for a very long time, they think, I've done this. I've been running the system. I have done all my improvements. I've seen it. I've been there, and that's it, right? But even to all the things, right? Because they have to understand system is very, very consistent. When you plug in anything into a system, it's very consistent. The data comes in very consistently. You are able to track patterns. That's what we also want to share with people. The patterns that's happening in your organization. You might be very excellent facility, but are you monitoring the patterns that's happening? You know, for one simple fact, right? If people switch on all the machine at the same time, their maximum demand energy consumption is going to spike. And how TNB calculates is a 15 minutes duration or half an hour duration. If that spike, they will use that amount for your band, which will be higher. So if we actually switch on staggered, just simple thing, the cost of you paying will automatically go to a different band. So they need to understand the pattern, right? Where is it? So some of us, when they hear about, this is simple, yes, they know. Some machines are continuously running, so there is no impact, right? But what are the things that's not running? I'm sure you don't need air condition in an office when people are not working, right? How do you check those kind of stuff? The important thing is, if you don't monitor, you really don't know what's going on. If you monitor, then you know what's the pattern, you know whether you need to save it, you know how to improve it, and you know where to go and start in the first place, right? You look at your priorities, right?
That was the part that got you and your team to start looking into creating something.
Yes, exactly. For this, exactly, right. And then as we went in and when we spoke about carbon emission, then people were thinking, are you talking about the ESG? I say, yeah, but they're only talking about carbon emission because that's for electricity, right, the consumption. Then the more that we start consulting with people, we realize that people have very limited knowledge on the whole entire ESG on the ground. Although I can tell you every month there is an awareness course, there's session about ESG, people are attending forum. I myself have attended many such sessions. And when we are talking to people, people are just overwhelmed with all the information and they don't know where to start. And that sparked us again. This is another problem. What can we do to fix it, right? And that's how we decided, hey, our energy monitoring system, we built the whole shell, but I thought this one, how to digitalize the information of the ESG will take precedence, because if you know how to capture all this information, then you can prioritize, maybe your electricity is your major gap. Then you can embark on the digitalized IoT-enabled stuff, right? So that's where we conceptualize the digital ESG product. So that's how we started building a product apart from our services, because we saw an opportunity, we saw the problem, and for us, it's very important we build something that fixes the problems that you have. If at least we see it right now, we also see what's going to happen in the future. And sometimes a lot of people don't see. So we are building it upfront to capture that.
based on that, since the last time that we talked in 2020, you have been busy doing this, right? Like you said, there's so many ESG forums, there's so much of information out there. But in terms of actually doing something, right? The actual doing. And that is the part that I want to talk to you about. So in terms of implementing ESG, let's not even talk about ESG. Let's talk about the E part. I think the E part itself is as important as the S and the G, but everyone just happily lumps it together as ESG. So can we go back a little and ask what is and what isn't ESG?
Maybe I can even go to another phase and tell you what are the top 5 myths about ESG.
Okay. Then from there you can see what is and what isn't ESG, right?
It is easy because when we talk to people think ESG is new. That's really a myth. ESG is not new. We have been talking about this, which originated from the SDG goals. You know, we talk about the climate change, we talk about diversity and inclusion, we talk about governance, we talk about health and safety. All this has been there for decades. The only difference right now, they have put all them together as an ESG to have a holistic view at one part on how are we taking a look at it. And obviously, they put in a financial relation with it, right? If you have a certain initiative, then we are able to give you more funding and those kind of stuff. In my mind, again, my own personal opinion, I feel probably this is like, parenting. I tell you to do it and you're not going to do it. And I've been pushing you to do it. I ask you for reporting and I do. Now, I'm not going to give you the money, right? I will hold the money.
So I'm not going to give you pocket money unless you do something, right?
Yes, I'm going to hold the pocket money. You go ahead and do it, and then I'll give you back the pocket money. Something like that, in that terms, right? So that's one myth. The other myth that I see, people think ESG is going to cost them money, a lot of money. Let me tell you something that's also is not true. Because a lot of the organization have been working on so many parts of it, but they are not very clear what is it that is required, right? So if you pull all the available information, you will be able to do it. But the only thing is, of course, again, in a different perspective, this opens up another opportunity for consultants, right? Even like me, right? Or certain consultant, where we happily come and say, we will do everything for you and charge you a whole bomb, right? So that's probably causing them to feel that it's expensive. And then they feel that paying that will lose their competitiveness, which is not true, right? If you really sit down, you understand what is it, then you know how to. Third myth, they feel that ESG is mandating someone to go ahead and you can only emit this much of carbon emission, or you can only do this kind of compliance. It's not. There is no mandation right now. The only thing that's happening is they want to see what are the efforts that you are taking in to address these issues. Firstly, you need to know where you are, right? So whether you know how much emissions that you're creating.
Yeah, that's your baseline, right?
Yes. And then, are you taking any proactive step to go ahead and do it? Of course, like from European nations or certain industry like semiconductor IEEE for certain factor for FAB, they have specified because they have gone through the chain for a very long time. So they understand, hey, we can only emit this much because it's going to cost us this. What's the regulation? Because people are taking this information, for example, for governments, they are taking a look at all these emissions and taking a look, hey, how much of impact is going to happen to my country? What am I going to do to protect my country, right? And that's where they introduce the tax, ESG tax, and all those things coming up, right? So that's the thing that people need to clearly understand, right? I've already shared the 3 myths, right? I think that's good enough for the myth of the ESG. So if you ask me what is ESG, what is it not, I have to tell you this is something that has been there for ages. Like as I told you, it's from the SDGs and everything. The only thing is it gives a holistic view on how we want to run any organization in a much more optimized, ethical manner. That is how I put it. Because we take a look at how your labor practices are. We take a look at how your governance are. Because one of the things that you want to curb is your anti-corruption. Are people willing to share if there is issues in your organization? Those are suppose couple of indicators that people will look at. So if you look at it, ESG to me is actually helping the organization to take a look at the entire holistic view of how to run it effectively. If you look at the environment part, the factors that people will look in is your energy consumption, whether it's brown, green, whatever, right? Your carbon emission related to you, how you're managing your waste, how you're managing your water, how are you managing the materials, whether you're going to use it recycled, right? So if you take a look at it, if you know how to run all of that part in the environment properly, and of course like biodiversity where you're planting, then you automatically save costs, right? If you increase your percentage of recycle and all these things, you save costs. For me, it's a conscious driver. So if you take a look at social, we look at your diversity and inclusion. We look at your turnover rate. We look at your health and your well-being, right? Safety and well-being. We look at your employee satisfaction. We look at the labor practices that are there in the organization. And if you take a look at it, it's not only just your organization, we also try to see your supply chain. Are you getting things from some supply chain where they use child labor, right? For example, those kind of practices. Again, technically, you should be already doing that in an organization, right? And then you look at the training and development. So if you take a look at it, the social aspect actually covers a lot more of the personal or the people, the employee. And also, it also takes a look at the product that you sell. What is the satisfaction level? Is it actually meeting the people's need, right? Customer stuff. So that are the aspects in the social, just in a snapshot. If I take a look at the governance, it's more of how you run the organization, again, in an ethical, integrity manner. What is your structure like? What is your diversity and inclusion at your board level? What is your commitment towards ethics and regulation? What kind of policies do you have? Do you have like code of conduct? Do you have like a whistleblowing? Okay, that's one, you have it. The other aspect is how many people have actually used that avenue? You know, a lot of people, very easy, they say, yes, I have code of conduct, I have whistleblowing. But if you go in the organization, none of them would have raised an issue because they have a concern. If you raise it, you will be penalized, right? But people don't understand, for an open organization, people must feel comfortable to raise the issue so we can address it at any time, right? That's the transparent reporting we need. And of course, the other thing is what kind of litigations is the organization having? Do you have any concerns, any litigations, or like data privacy? Do you have any concerns about that? So these are, if I share with you right now, Krista, I'm sure any organization should have already considered all these aspects, right? This is nothing new. It's just that for ESG reporting, we are collating all this information together, which was last time clustered in different area, like for CSR, for example, right? We want to see community engagement and how much your donation that you do. So it's all straight away in CSR. Then we talk about employee, we take a look at the health and safety, OSHA regulation and everything, but it's in a different component. But now we are trying to bring everything together. And then we are trying to assess it together holistically, how the organization is doing.
As you were mentioning it, and then you were saying that basically it's nothing new. It's been there for the longest time. Maybe they're parked under different categories like CSR or under waste management and all that. But right now it comes under, I would say, like a bigger umbrella, like a bigger category called ESG.
Yes.
What if someone says, yeah, I'm doing all this, so how is it that I need to prove that I'm doing more of it?
You don't need to prove you're doing more. You need to know what you are doing. So as I shared with you the categories, right? You asked me for implementation. People feel very overwhelmed because, for example, BRUSA is regulating these requirements for Malaysia, for example, right? So they send out documentation and everything is 100 over pages. And then if you take a look at GRI, FTSE for Good, and then SASB, a lot of the requirements, I think people love to write a lot of stuff like the policy. It's like very legal contract documents, a lot of words, a lot of stuff. And then while you're reading the second paragraph, you forgot what was the first paragraph about. So, but
is that complex, right? Is that
exactly? Right? So it took us some time to go back, and I have read it many, many times to make sure we are very clear what is it, right? Because our idea is, how can we take all these things which are jargons and all this complicated and put them into simple terms that people know what they need to go ahead and monitor. One very clear example, waste management. Many people feel the waste is something that they discard, right? They don't care about it. They don't know how many tons of waste that they discuss. There is no recycling. When I tell them, your waste is your new goal. So, that kind of stuff, because there is no effort to put in, but they have the waste. So what can we do? So that's how we came up with our digital solution, where we categorize them very simple. When people take a look at, when I showed it for pilot testing, they say, so simple. But they don't understand to bring to simple terms. It took us very long time because people like to complicate things and we want to simplify it, right? If you understand what is the terms as I shared with you, people automatically know, right? And these are the information. First, you need to key in what is your baseline. That means last year, what you have done. If you don't have any indicator in there, it's okay. You don't have to report. And then you tell, based on this information, what are you going to work on? Another thing that people feel overwhelmed is like, oh my God, ESG. There's so many sectors. If I want to go and work on so many, I need so many resources. What I can do, so much of money, so much of time, right? That's what people thought. But fundamentally, there is no requirement to work on everything and anything. Firstly, we have to understand how to prioritize what we need to focus on. And to do that priority, this is another thing that I get excited. I talk to people about materiality analysis.
Okay, right? Define that. By itself, it already sounds like complex enough for most people.
Yeah, I realize, but that's the term that people use again. Actually, to be very simple, it only has two concepts, right? Two things that we need to look. We want to understand when you're looking at certain things, like for the environment, like for carbon emission, is that a concern for internal stakeholders or external stakeholders? Then if you look at your water management, which is your concern? Whether it's high, medium, low, or within the organization. There's a set of questions that you can get, but we have created that as well as we pull in there. And then you will come up with your top priority, because we want you to work on the high priority concern item. So you work on that. You will also address either your internal stakeholder or external stakeholder concern, which means you are actually aiding the organization growth, right? You're in alignment with that. So that's how we want you to look at things, right? For example, if certain industry, the carbon emission is a critical factor, for example, just oil and gas, carbon emission is a critical factor, then definitely that's your priority number one to monitor and see what are the actions that you're going to do to fix it, right? But if I am a small, medium enterprise, I am just doing boxing and carbon emission, I use less than 30,000 ringgit a month, for example, for electricity. So carbon emission is not a critical factor for me. Labor practices, who is actually folding the box? Am I using machinery? That might be a different priority, right? How do you look at it? So those are a couple of things that we can actually take a look at and really understand how to prioritize based on your sector and then focus on the item. And again, there is no hard and fast rule that you need to focus on 10 or 20 or whatever, right? The top, which is important, and that will also help organization growth, right? So that's the fundamental thing. So as you fix your ESG, your company performance should also increase. Alliance Bank, last year, they did a survey of 600 plus SMEs. They're the only one so far I've seen data in Malaysia, right? I want to quote Malaysia data. So if you take a look at it, close to 39% of the SMEs who have used ESG, which was only 28% who have used it, ESG, they have seen significant improvement in their profit, more than 30%, which shows that whatever investment they have put in has already paid back and they've already surpassed that. Right? So that's reality. So we're not just talking about theoretical stuff, right? For example, when I do this, there's one folks that I was just consulting. I just did a test run for them. And I told them, okay, we will do this assessment. And they told me that energy is not my concern. But when I showed them how much of energy consumption they were doing, they freaked out. And I told them if I simulated, I can reduce 10% of it. 10% contributes to a huge amount of dollar amount, right? And then you save your carbon emission, right? So
not only are you saving money, right?
Yes,
but
yes.
You're also helping the environment. So it's basically two different objectives met.
Yes, and very good point. That's another thing that I want to emphasize. ESG is not just a cost efficiency, it's a value proposition. It's not about profit alone. It's value. It's a total value, right? It's money, it's time, it's resources, it's saving the climate, that kind of stuff.
But I also feel that in that, right, and coming from the marketing thinking that I usually have is this, because that itself is a very strong proposition for marketing. Because if, for instance, I'm looking at two different products from two different companies, and I know that this product A comes from a company that really takes care of, like, maybe they replant trees, I don't know, maybe 10,000 trees a year or whatever, versus this other company that doesn't really care or doesn't say that that's doing anything in relation to, just say, the E part of the ESG, right? I would prefer to buy a product from company A or product A from company A, because I feel like I am part of that. If I buy this, I'm contributing my money. My money goes towards something that, in a way, you can say it makes me feel good. But at the same time, I know that that money will go towards planting more trees or doing something that is helpful, rather than this company that doesn't tell me anything, and whether or not that company is doing something positive for the E part of ESG, I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
So I guess as a marketing person, I would see that as something that I would really take into consideration if I'm buying a product, if I'm a consumer.
Very, very true. And if you see, that's the push that they want to drive, right? A lot of people, or another biggest thing that people always think that this ESG is only for big players, for MNCs. But to your point, actually, it relates to everyone. And it's coming up very soon. So we have a system right now. We are trying to engage with the SMEs. And a lot of them think, hey, there is no requirement for me to do that right now. But they don't understand. MNCs they are dictated by European countries or America or other countries like Singapore, whatever, right? They are already mandating their supply chain reporting, which means a lot of them coming up at end of 2024, actually very soon, to 2026. And if you're not going to comply, then most of the MNC, that's one of the way, they're going to put a brake on certain suppliers. You mentioned correctly that they would rather purchase something from a supplier who has a clear ESG requirements or reporting, right? They know where they are and they are doing some efforts to maintain it, right? Rather than somebody who's selling you very dirt cheap, but they have no clue what's happening, right? So they are taking that kind of measures. So it's very important. And this is one of the things that we were thinking about, as I say, right? we are not trying to find a solution just to fix the issue right now. We foresee the trend and what's coming up in the future. And that's how we want to go ahead and get people boarded into these kind of systems right away. And then it's much more easier for them to expand further, right? And if you take a look at it in Penang Island alone, we have close to probably 300 over MNCs, but nearly 4,000 over SMEs that's supporting the 300 MNCs, right? So look at the
subcontractors, right? The subcontractors, right?
Yeah. Exactly. So how are they going to equip themselves to make sure they have a clear clarity on doing what is required to be still in the survival mode, right? So that's the thing.
If they don't, actually they're out of the game, right?
Yes, they don't, they are going to be out of the game. And that's what's being seen right now. There are things happening, not in Malaysia per se, but in other countries that we know for a fact that they are stopping certain supply chain purely because of this kind of requirements are not being met.
So it's a very sobering thought for a lot of people who think that ESG just affects the MNCs, the bigger brands, the bigger production, manufacturing plants, right? Not the small players or the SMEs, or even to the level like, well, it doesn't affect me, so there's no way you can say that anymore because it affects everyone in the supply chain. Now that you talked about that, just like you mentioned that, talking about future, so I think this is one of the future, this is one of the more sobering futures that we can see. What are the other types of trends based on your experience with ESG?
So if I take a look at it in ESG specifically, right, one of the things that we are trying to do, one of the trends in technology is hyper-automation. I was just sharing this. I was in a tech talk last week. So I was sharing this with Roshan. And so it's very fresh in my mind. Because one of the things that's happening right now, there is a trend towards hyper-automation. There is a trend for cybersecurity, and there's a trend on technology with sustainability, right? So if you take a look at it, hyper-automation, what does it mean? Is, in the past, we tend to have an automation very siloed in one particular, like machine means that whole machine is automated. Then we look at another automation. And probably if we want to connect, both the machine must be automated by the same company, and then we connect. Similarly, like process automation, your SAP and all those, their Workday and everything, right? They kind to travel the whole entire landscape, right? Like they do recruitment, they do the learning and development piece, all HR buckets under them, right? So if you take a look at it, one of the reasons was that when they built that kind of system, very enterprise and everything, there was specific protocols, specific communications between them. But right now, the trend is because technology is becoming so accessible, there is so many things out there that you can do a lot by yourself, right? Democratization of technology, I would say, right? So if you look at it, a lot of people can pull out one domain, like for tele-recruitment, and they can be very expert in that. And then they can pull out another one for pay and ban and can be very expert on that, right? And they can write the software that can communicate to each other because it's a lot more standardized. So hyper-automation is where they take in multiple different automation and connect them together. And everything will work seamlessly. For just one...
So it's like the bridge.
Yeah, it's like a kind of, probably a bridge you call it. It's like you can automate anything independently and then can connect each other. That's the concept, right? Because it's hyper-automation. It's not just like automating one type or process automation. It's just one part of your doing it, right? You can connect, as you say, maybe it's because I say the word connect, it's hyper-automation. They can do everything in parts and then connect it together. So many different automations.
And it's happening now.
It's happening in certain places. We see it and it's coming up, right? So if you take a look at it, that's one of the things that what we want to do at STRAVIK. We call this product for this sustainability connects to save. Because you connect with us, we will save your money, your cost, your whatever, right? Energy, the climate, that's our thought, right? We want to save. And then we are doing, of course, we are taking steps as well, right? So we are giving you a light version where we grab the information and tell you how to key in the basic information for your ESG. And then our next phase is we want to do benchmark analytics. And then we are going to go ahead and do prescriptive type of analytics. So we can also recommend to you what you need to do, right? Apart from that, we are looking at, for example, most of you probably already have an SAP or a Workday or whatever, right? When I talk to you about the social, I want to look at employee attrition, for example, right? And then you might be asking me, why do I need to go and key in another place for ESG on that, right? So our thought is, how can I automate that? So I probably grab from whatever available systems that you have and actually pull that information easily. So that's another way for us to go ahead and do. Those are a couple of things that we are thinking about as we build this system. Again, we are not looking Connect to Save as just a product, it's providing a digital ecosystem. That's how we are positioning it. That's how we want to go about doing that. And if you look at the trend, we feel if you don't come on board on a digital system, then you're going to struggle in sustainability in terms of managing all the information that you have.
So it is a dashboard to get all your information in a way that you can manage and monitor, right?
Yes. You have to capture that, right? And you have to know what's your trend. You need to know. You cannot be having it in multiple different areas. How are you going to connect the dots? So this is one of the things that we are doing right now and building that. That's coming up in the future, as you say, right? We want to go in and position ourselves to help them to really understand what is the ESG, making it sure that they understand. We can work with them on the maturity analysis and understand what is your priority. And then this tool is a part for them to use that so that they know how to sustain themselves. Once you have the whole entire framework for your organization, then you can just follow along and use the system by yourself. So our thought is how we want to empower the people to do ESG by themselves, by making sense of the data that they have collected.
By seeing patterns, right?
Yes.
By seeing patterns in the data, because sometimes numbers are just numbers, right? I mean, it's just random number, like they don't understand how it relates to their work, or like you say, how it relates to more profits, or more cost savings, or more people buying their products and services because they know exactly what they're doing, right? So I'm glad you demystified ESG in a way that the everyday person, everyday business owner, the everyday employee, or even the manager can understand. Because I think this is the part where I think a lot of people struggle with. And even I struggle with it, because sometimes when people talk about ESG, I think like, wow, there's so many, like you said, there's so many ESG webinars, forums, but is there a proper roadmap? Is one. Is there a proper implementation or a method that people, regular everyday business owners can use, rather than just, okay, let's just keep talking about it. But talking about it without taking any action is completely fruitless, right?
Exactly. We feel a lot of people still struggle. So we can provide the consulting and then we will give you the tool so that we can support the whole entire solution, right? And then it's much easier for you to take off and do. And that's what we're striving to do. And one thing that you pointed out just now, that about people having the misconception of ESG, right? And thinking it's difficult, and at least now
costly.
You know what it is. Yeah, costly. The other thing that I want to also emphasize, ESG is not just KPI or indicators in the organization. I feel ESG is very good ethical practices for each individual. Are you saving your energy in your house? Are you keeping the lights on when it's not required? Are you bringing your own tiffin carrier to buy things rather than using the plastics? right? Simple things, right? What are you doing? Are you recycling the decoration items? So if you take a look at it, of course, we feel that corporations are contributing the most amount of carbon emissions, right? In Malaysia, I would say logistics is the biggest chunk of energy emissions, because especially in Malaysia, we have the number of vehicles on the road surplus the number of population. So technically, ratio-wise, one person, even the baby has a vehicle. If we do that,
the baby has a car before the baby can drive.
Yeah, a car, or motorbike, or something like that. So the amount of emissions that we emit per person in Malaysia is within the top 10 countries that is actually classified as high valued countries like US or Japan, because they are doing a lot of highly paid, right? So this is a mindset change. We need to really take a look at it and embrace it, right? So that's one of the things. So it's not just about talking about, it's a joke. I went for a sustainability event, and when they served the food in plastic plates, and I'm like, ah. So these are the things that people feel that, hey, I'm showing you the indicators, but the fact is for you to really think consciously what you're doing.
I really echo that, because a lot of times when you go for any event and everyone talks about being green, but then what they do at the event, or how they decorate the event, or what they serve at the event really is shocking, because there's so much of trash, so much of plastic, so much of non-recyclable stuff.
Yeah,
you can't do anything with it. And at the same time, everyone's just talking about sustainability without even thinking that sustainability begins with the individual.
Yes.
Before we even get to the organization or company level or business level, it has to come from that individual who practices it on a daily basis. Yeah, so that's a really, really good point to end with, because that is something we want everyone who's listening to this to think like, how am I being sustainable in my own life first, before we even talk about your business, your organization, your business unit, your teams, right? How are you sustainable as a human being on earth?
Very true. And I must say, I can leave you with this quote, which is from an African proverb, that they say that we don't inherit this earth from our ancestors. We actually borrow it from our children. So we better
take care of it.
Yes. Okay.
Finally, where can people find you online?
Dr. Vimi Ramasamy in LinkedIn. You can drop me a message there. There is info@stravik.com that you can send an email to, that we can respond to as well. And we don't have a lot of the information on the STRAVIK website yet. We have a lot more insights that we consciously have decided not to put it out there. So if you need to know more, just reach out to us, and then we will definitely connect you and see what we can help with.
Thank you, Vimi. Thank you for coming back and sharing with us the latest development in the the ESG world. And everyone is a buzz, right? Everyone loves this ESG thing, but I'm glad we managed to demystify it and simplify it for people. And why I brought you back is also, I think, because both of us believe in the same things. Like, we know that it's very hard to do things if everything is complicated. It needs to be simplified. But simplification doesn't mean that it's the easiest thing to do.
Yes.
And that itself involves a lot of curation, a lot of understanding, knowledge, figuring out insights. And that's where you get the simple stuff, right? The simple stuff is not the easy stuff, but the simple stuff is stuff that some people, companies like yours and mine, we thrive on doing simple stuff. But again, I want to put it out there that simple is not easy.
Exactly. And that is the thing, because it takes a lot, because technically everybody likes to complicate things, because psychologically they like to feel better when things are complicated.
Yes. And when things are complicated, I think they can blame other things when things go wrong, right? Because if it's so simple, there's no one to blame except themselves. Because obviously it's all there.
It's obvious and it's very transparent, right? And that's what and echo what you said, right? We are here to make life more simple. And we feel being simple is the best thing that we can do. All right, thank you so very much for having me here. And wow, I just can't believe the time has passed by an hour and we had
fun, right? Talking about ESG. Yes. Even though ESG may not seem like the most interesting topic to talk about, but I know it's interesting for you because this is your business. But I was thinking to myself, I want to make it accessible. And I think that's the part that we thrive, right, on making things accessible for people so that they can understand tough things, but understand them in the ways that they themselves can take the action on. So thank you once more, Vimi, for coming back on the podcast again to explain the latest trends, latest challenges, and also debunking some myths about ESG. So thank you once more.
Awesome. You have a great day, Dan. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
If you have been befuddled by ESG, I hope after this episode you are now much clearer on what ESG entails. As Vimi advisors, take a look at what's critically important in your business. You can only do that if you have a baseline of what's already happening, and that is usually through data. Data helps uncover patterns of wastefulness and careless usage. You can only improve once you know what's available to improve. But you don't have to work on all the pieces of ESG in one go. Work on that which really impacts your bottom line. The message is clear. ESG isn't all about the big corporations. It affects everyone in business and everyone in the supply chain. And yes, eventually it all comes down to you and me. How are we as individuals embracing sustainable practices through our daily habits and actions? If you're new to this podcast, do subscribe so that you can get the latest episodes. If you're a returning listener, can you do me a favor? Please rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast app. It will go a long way in helping others discover our show. If you'd like to support this podcast, remember to follow us on Instagram and Threads. Now, next week on episode 14, the final episode for this season, episode 14 is with Selena Lee, the co-founder and CEO of a platform called Zindi. Zindi is the first data science competition platform in Africa. It hosts an entire data science ecosystem of scientists, engineers, academics, companies, NGOs, governments, and institutions focused on solving Africa's most pressing problems. This episode is also about what it means to be a female and Asian American and growing a dream that is making a tremendous impact in the world of data science, AI, and machine learning. Selena says Zindi is at heart providing access and opportunities to data scientists in Africa and beyond. Catch the final episode of Season 8 and Selena's story next week.